What is the craziest thing you have ever seen your mother do? I've never heard my mother use any profanity in my entire life, not as a child or an adult. We had a retirement party for her, and a lot of co-workers showed up. She was her usual pleasant self, and at the end of the night, she got up from the table, called her boss a freaking worthless piece of crap and left the restaurant. Your mom's a G. One night after kayaking with my parents, we got home really late, so we decided to leave the kayak strapped to the top of the Tahoe. In the middle of the night, my dad creeps in my room and peeks out my window. I wake up and he hushes me. My mom comes in and goes, "Come on." They head downstairs and I hear my dad pick up the phone and start talking to the police. I suddenly hear the front door slam open and my mom scream, "Drop that freaking kayak." The woman is outside pointing a butcher knife at 3 thieves, who also have knives, cutting the kayak down. I then hear my dad say to the police, "Hold on a second," followed by "Sandy, what the frick?" The robbers ran off and my mom remains the baddest badass in the world. Freaking legend. We were driving down the road once when I was younger. My mom suddenly pulls into a random driveway and jumps out of the car and starts walking down the street the way we came. She bent down to pick something up. She comes back to the car with a coin in her hand and says, "I knew I saw a quarter on the sidewalk." My mom once got out of the car at a stoplight to walk up to the driver's side window of the truck in front of us so she could scream bloody murder at him until the light turned green for intentionally swerving to run over a box turtle along the side of the road. I'm with mom on this one. One time, because I didn't tell my mom what was making me upset, she literally hulked out and ripped her shirt off. I still didn't tell her what was wrong, but there was now an additional problem of seeing the angriest half-naked woman in existence. "Okay brother, you're gonna tell me what's wrong right this second or the monster is gonna take you down." My brother was misbehaving, so my mom wanted to hit him with the slipper. I was in the bathroom pooping, so when I came out I was surprised no one was home. I looked out the window and saw my brother running across an empty field and my mom chasing him with the slipper in hand. Funniest freaking sight I ever had. I was having a fire in the backyard with a friend. Early in the night I saw a shadow of someone in a yard over. Told my friend. He said, "Nah, I don't see anything." "Yes, there's a man there." A couple hours later I see the same man, only this time from another neighbor's yard. Friend gets to take a look and scares the guy off. We decide to call it a night. Our dogs, who had been inside, bark when they hear the side gate as I let me friend out. Mom wakes up, asks what's happening. I tell her about the creeper. She grabs a flashlight, hands me the phone and says, "Call 911 if you hear anything wrong." Armed with just a flashlight, her wife beater and panties she was sleeping in, she runs outside to look for the creep. Turned out to be my ex-BF stalking me. Cops were called, but I will always remember her running out there with nothing but a flashlight and a mom's courage, and thinking she's freaking crazy. I had an ex-boyfriend wait outside my house for hours, watching me, until I called the cops. Didn't know it was him until after they talked to him and called me back. My mom still asks me why I won't just give him another chance. Your mom sounds awesome. I really wish I could see his face when your angry mom chased him down in her panties. She used to be the kind of person who would yell at retail and fast food employees. One time she freaked the frick out at a Blockbuster employee because she accidentally gave me the wrong game. I always check to make sure we got the right one before we got home, so it really wasn't a big deal. Later, when she was telling my dad what happened, she lied and acted like she was the victim. Very uncool. I was only 10 and even I knew better than to act like that. Mother's Day 11 years ago, my very petite mother decided to take my brother and I to Ross local clothing store in a strip mall. We are pulling in and I guess she stayed at the stop sign a half a second too long, so the guy behind us lays on his horn and starts flipping her off. She responds by driving at a turtle's pace to make sure he was even more irritated until we actually pulled off to park. Instead of moving along and just being angry, the man decided to follow us into the parking spot and pull up so fast to my mom's door he almost hit it when she got out and started screaming in her face. Instead of being afraid, she went full psycho mode, pushed him backward and kicked 4 perfectly sized 6 boot-sized dents into the side of his car while screaming some of the craziest crap I've ever heard. After he fumbles his phone out to call the police, we peel out and head home. I did not get to go to Ross. A man chasing down a mother with 2 young kids in the car. I am not sure who the cop would side with. Oh, my mother. Love her to bits, but she definitely has shaped her own category of how to be a parent. First off, she works and has worked 60-70 hours a week my entire life. She loves her job, and that's why she's there so much. Wasn't really around the house, but when she was drinking Coke by the can and watching Forensic Files. Stopped using a babysitter for my younger brother and I when I turned 8. Said no house rules or curfews. Said, rules don't make men, mistakes do. Then sips her soda and watches her show LOL. Said, rules don't make men, mistakes do. I like this. When I was around 14, she went on a blind rampage calling us, myself and 2 brothers, ages 13 and 11, lying little shoots. That no one would ever trust us and we'd get nowhere in life. That she hates living with us and she wishes she could pack up and leave like our father did. He left to escape her and is still very much involved in our lives. Why? Someone ate the last biscuit in the packet and no one would own up to it. A monkey entered my house through the back door and went straight into the kitchen. It started breaking things and throwing stuff around. My mom tried to shoo it away but it wouldn't budge. So she took a stick to save herself in case it attacks and started shouting at it. The monkey started making these sounds trying to scare her. This went on for about 10 minutes. I guess the monkey got tired and it left, but I'll never forgot the sight of my mom, who is usually kinda calm, trying to duel with the monkey. You had me at a monkey entered my house through the back door. What a great opening. When I was like 12 years old, my family made a trip to Croatia and we wanted to cross through Serbia. After like 5h of driving with the car, I really had to take a crap out in the middle of nowhere. But because of possible landmines still around after the war, my mum told me to stay at the car while she makes a safe path to her place I can't take a crap. It took me 5 years to realize that she had put herself in the serious danger of getting killed by a landmine just because I had to empty my bowels. Next Mother's Day you can make her a card with a landmine and a pile of poop saying, "You're the bomb," and "You're the crap," and on the inside say, "Thanks for all the years of guidance, Mom," with a little picture of a kid squatting in the distance and 2 pairs of footprints leading out there. I made some drawings on some cards and sent them as invitations for my birthday to my family members. My granddad thought it was a fun idea and made a drawing of his own which he sent to me, accepting the invitation and letting me know that he looked forward to it. This short-circuited my mother's brain for some reason. When I got home from school, she threw my little brother and myself in the car and drove us to my granddad's house, where she proceeded to scream at him, seemingly forever, about how despicable he was, how he played favorites, and how he was a terrible person for not having sent a card to my little brother for his birthday a month earlier. The fact that my brother hadn't sent out any invitations, and that he didn't care at all about me getting a reply for my effort, didn't matter to her at all. Things were never quite the same between my mother and my granddad after that day. I still don't know what kind of a mental breakdown caused it. It's one of those things we don't talk about, and I didn't send out invitations in the years which followed. She fell for a Nigerian, Jamaican, lottery scam. After she had my dad thrown in jail, she was blocking the bedroom door where $2,000 in cash was, and he pushed her aside to get the money before she sent it to the scammers. We had an impromptu intervention. The scammers would call the house every 5 minutes. She lost about $6,000 to them. She would beg them on the phone to bring the lottery money because we didn't believe her. It was very sad. That is so sad. I'm sorry. We were hiking the Grand Canyon and it was day 2, so we were hiking up and out, which is of course more challenging than walking downhill. My mom kept complaining about the heat and how tired she was, and along comes a park ranger leading a group of tourists on a burro ride to the bottom. She walks right in front of his horse. The rangers ride horses. The tourist burrows donkeys and collapses on the ground, crying and wailing. The ranger asks if she needs medical help and she literally holds the back of her hand against her forehead like a silent film actress and sobs that she can't carry this backpack any farther, etc. The ranger says he can take her backpack and drop it off next to the ranger station at the top of the canyon, and she thanks him about 12 times, crying non-stop. All this time the tourists are staring at this spectacle, and that was enough for me. I was so embarrassed. I told my sister I would meet them all at the top and I took off on my own. Oh, so many things, but the one that comes to mind. I was engaged, and my mother decided to buy me my wedding suit as a wedding present. I took my fiancée along because really her opinion is the one that matters. She had met my mother before, but only briefly. This was her first real outing with her. Everything is going fine. We have a nice Caucasian man. Yes, it's important. Helping us. And he's showing us different suits. We find one we like and we are almost out of there when the man who is helping us gets called away. So he asks a fellow employee to help us. This employee is Middle Eastern and is on the more flamboyant side. He had Mark prominently displayed on his name tag. Ooh, Aladdin, my mother squeals in his face. Aladdin is going to help us. My name is Mark, he politely says, and I'd be happy to help you. No, you're Aladdin. Can you help us find a suit for my son's wedding? But nothing too floofy. He is marrying a woman, you see. This continues for some time. Finally we pick a suit, and now we are getting measured for tailoring. How does my son's butt look in the suit, Aladdin? Don't look too long. She also assured him that she's fine with the fact he's gay. He never discussed his sexuality, but he was flamboyant, so it could be likely, because then he's not blowing himself up on a donkey, and that's how my wife was introduced to the family. I got second-hand embarrassments from this. When I was in 2nd grade, 1994, I went to Catholic school. I learned about other religions through TV and asked my mom if those other people who follow other religions would go to heck. She told me, honey, it doesn't matter what you believe in as long as you are kind to others. I was so stoked. I went to school and told my friends what she had said and they all got super excited. Well, the news got around the school and I was called into Principal Sister Jean's office. She spanked me for spreading blasphemy. My mom was called to pick me up because I was acting hysterical afterwards. I'm sitting outside the nun's office watching my mom and her talk when suddenly my mom punched a nun in the face. Now my mom is a guidance counselor and a large high school in Genesee, MI. She's the nicest person I've ever met. I will never forget that moment. She came out yelling, "Go ahead and call the police," and we went and had Slurpees. A week later I started public school and my mom started her job as a teacher. When I was growing up there was a spring when a bear was coming around our yard and knocking over the bird feeder and eating the seed. He must have ruined like 3 feeders before my mother stopped buying new ones and started gluing it back together. So one morning I am sitting at the table with my mom having breakfast when she looks out at the feeder, then stands up and rips the slider door open, storms out onto the deck and starts screaming, "Hey, get off my feeder." At this point I peek around the corner and sure enough there is the bear coming down off its back 2 legs looking very confused as to why it's getting yelled at. The bear walks off into the woods and she comes back inside as if nothing happened. Me and my dad just look at each other and start laughing. My mother, one of the most tame and level-headed people I know, just flipped her crap on a bear and scared it off. Mom went up like 15 points in the baddest department that day. She sat down to play 2 hours of Tomb Raider on the PS1. No real reason besides just curiosity of what it was, and never went back to it. I got a lot of respect then, that a parent would take that much of an interest in their kids' hobbies. It doesn't take a lot of effort or time to get an idea, even if only small, of what younger generations are into. Not really that crazy, but still not something I would ever expect. My mom used to drive to local bars during the day. We were just little kids, so we weren't allowed to come in, so she left us outside all day long. We used to play in the parking lots. We played hide and seek and hid under people's parked cars. We gathered all the rocks in the landscaping and built pyramids and made tracks for our Hot Wheels. We thought it was totally normal for kids to play in parking lots all day. She would come out at night so drunk that she could hardly stand, and drive us home. She drove a van that had no back seats in it, so us kids just sat on the floor. One day she was so drunk that she got lost and drove into a construction site and ran right into a huge pile of dirt, and I went flying through the van and busted my head on the stereo and was told it was just a scratch and to stop being a pea. Even though I was bleeding profusely, we thought all of this was normal. We had absolutely no idea that it wasn't normal. Decades later she was in treatment for alcoholism, and I was asked to come to one of their meetings. They wanted me to tell my mom, in front of a group, all the things that her drinking had done to me as a child. I told stories like the one above, and she remembers none of it. She denies it all, and swears she has no memory of any of it. No wonder she doesn't remember all that booze probably killed off her hippocampus. When I was 17 and my brother was 15, she got into an argument with him outside. I watched through the kitchen window as she chased him with a hammer. He made it to the house and locked the screen door. She proceeded to hammer the door. She's also tried to stab me. One of my earliest memories is her drugging me so I'd sleep. She must have overdosed me because I couldn't breathe. My parents were arguing over calling an ambulance and she was worried they'd lose their jobs. She was a nurse and dad was a cop. I'm in my early 40s and my mother has caused me so much anguish and destroyed our family. I was non-contact with my parents for about 3 years but recently let them back in. It is a disaster. Much harder to cut them off a second time now they've met their grandchildren. I accidentally fell asleep with a candle still lit when I was a teenager. My mom saw, and instead of walking over and blowing it out, she completely panicked. She let out a big yell, grabbed the candle and swung it around while trying to blow it out. She spilled wax everywhere. I realized that's unsafe, but nothing else was on fire that might cause a panic. To this day I can't figure out why she was so freaked out by a candle that she lost her mind and spilled wax all over the place rather than just blowing it out. A few years ago my mum was going through the menopause and wasn't really feeling great about herself. My stepdad and I were trying to cheer her up and give her compliments but it didn't seem to do much to help. One Saturday evening I was having dinner with them. There was a lot of wine involved, and we were discussing how my mum wasn't feeling very confident or beautiful anymore. I told her she needed to embrace who she is and that she should be proud of her body and her looks. She is truly the most beautiful woman I've ever known. And the next thing we know she has stepped outside into the back garden, taken her t-shirt and bra off and is streaking around the garden in a moment of madness. We live in an urban area, and our garden is overlooked by quite a few houses. She got her confidence back from that little outburst though, and the neighbors probably got quite a surprise. You do you, mum. This is actually kind of cute. Lived in an older house with glass doorknobs that can come loose, fall out, etc. When I was in high school, my sister was away at college and my dad and brother were at a basketball game out of town. Mother Dearest drank an entire bottle of Old Crow that afternoon and decided I was an ungrateful fat bee while I was upstairs doing my homework in my room and took the doorknob out, so I was locked in. I was locked in from 6 PM to 7 AM. No dinner, no breakfast, no explanation other than the drunk screams through the door of being a fat ungrateful bee. Should note at this time I was maybe 100 pounds and a ballet dancer. Oh my, that sounds awful. I was told my mother was dead at around 4 years old and then introduced to her, without warning, when I was 16. Legend has it that she spent some of that time in a mental hospital, so while I didn't actually see it, that's pretty much the definition of crazy. My mum was looking out of a window and saw a traffic warden about to put a parking ticket on her car. Panicking, she flung open THR window and shouted wait, sprinted down the stairs and up the street towards him. The best part was she was currently starring in a production of The Sound of Music and as such was dressed in a full nun's habit. The window she leaned out of was at the back of the theater, so this traffic warden got to witness a nun come belting up the street shouting at him in a very strong opera singer's voice. My mum is rather dramatic. I have more if people are interested. Yes please. I live near Tampa. Irma had just came through and knocked a tree into our yard. My mom brings out the 20-inch chainsaw and goes to town on the tree. Now this may seem normal, right? Wrong. Mom was injured in February of 2004 from slipping on the ice when we lived in Illinois. She had a torn rotator cuff for 10 years. She injured her neck and lower back as well. She instantly got fibromyalgia and nerve damage on the fall. To make matters worse, She acquired heart disease and diabetes. So imagine a permanently disabled woman taking a 20-inch chainsaw to a 4-foot thick oak tree. Mum was the craziest, strongest person I'll ever know, and I'll love her forever. She passed away this year on the 17th of February. She saved my life and I miss her dearly. I'm sorry for your loss. My mom was also permanently disabled. She died February 9th this year. It's hard. I hope you're okay. When I was a kid, my mom took me and my little brother to a park for a picnic. I was eating a cookie when a seagull, like the buttholes that they are, swooped down and tried to steal it out of my hand. I didn't let go and it started to get aggressive and attack me. That's when my mom came in with hands of maternal fury and punched the gull dead center. He shrieked and flew off. To this day I've never seen anyone else get in a fist fight with a bird. My mother painted our living room ceiling pink and then decided to paint herself from head to toe in the same pink paint. She ran around the house screaming, adamant that I wasn't her child. I was about 5. It was the day after Christmas and it scared the crap out of me. This was the beginning of 2 days of a psychotic episode and a later diagnosis of schizophrenia. I was in care a lot after that. Oh my sweet baby Jesus, where do I begin? Fairly certain my mom has undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. Most interactions with her are pretty WTF. So I guess I'll just go with some of the most recent, because childhood was, yay. 1. She is obsessed with my son. Like, to the point where I worry that she will try to sue for custody by making up stories about us. She daily sends videos of her she wants him to watch, or asks for pictures so she can post them online. A thing, as adoptive parents, we don't like to do. When we don't respond within an hour or two, she flips her crap, says I guess we're not on speaking terms now, calls us ungrateful, goes all woe is me asking what it was she did to us. She also seemed to revel in the fact that my son preferred her to me when she stayed here, which is horrible in terms of bonding with a newly adopted child from an orphanage. She actively tried to disrupt bonding efforts in a lot of ways and would forget our rules. It felt super creepy. I seriously felt her pushing me away from him. Husband felt it too. When the bow breaks type crap, except without the father part. We're editing our wills to make sure she doesn't get custody if something happens to us. 2. When I was moving across country, she decided to tell me she had mouth cancer. Horrible thing to have, except she forgot that, all through childhood, she had shown me that same mouth cancer spot and told me about how a dog bit her and it had messed up her lip and left a big scar. Nice try, yo. Oh, and bonus unrelated story, but pretty sure my mother-in-law is trying to kill my father-in-law. Husband agrees. I have BPD so I understand. When left untreated we can be something. Dude walked up our driveway to ask for a job. Mum didn't feel like employing anyone so she went in, got a revolver and walked him out the driveway, putting the occasional bullet into the ground behind his feet. My mother may or may not need help. I'm gonna go with May. Raised 3 boys all by herself working as a bartender. I can't fathom doing the same thing and to me it's crazy how it's even possible with no child support or nothing. Every time I hit a certain age and actually think about it I'm mind blown. I hit 22 and I'm like her mom had 3 kids at this time. I hit 30 and think she bought her first house at 30. WTF is wrong with me, it's just crazy to me. Fended off a pack of coyotes that were approaching us. After hiding me she took off as bait to lead them away. That could have gone so wrong. That's like the exact plot of Kung Fu Panda 2. We had an Xbox that suffered from RROD. We kept it in a bag in hopes that we would send it to some tech support place and they'd fix it. After about 2 months we wouldn't stop asking our mum when we were sending it. Eventually she got angry and threw it through a window. We got a new Xbox. Throwing RROD's boxes was the way to fix them. Everyone knows this. My mother is a really enthusiastic gardener and she sometimes resorts to odd ways to solve her problems. The one that sticks out to me is when she was microwaving numerous flower pots filled with soil in order to kill potential larvae residing in there. Most of the things she does seem weird at first but make somewhat sense once she explains it. I used to work with a very well qualified chemist. The stuff she did around the house, dealing with small child mishaps etc. sounded insane, but when she explained the chemistry behind it, it suddenly made sense. Mom is a meticulous housekeeper. That's why, according to Dad, she neatly placed daily newspapers under the cuckoo clock, just in case. Grab a broken toy out of a box full of perfectly good ones, take it to the counter and ask for a discount for it being broken, and proceeding to call the cashier a stupid fat bee because she said she isn't allowed to discount the toy. I told my mom it was wrong and she grounded me for being an butthole. She sounds like a real peach. My mum punched the back window of a van when he almost hit me while backing out of his driveway, and she also confronted the driver. I have never seen my mother so livid, nor have I ever seen a man be so scared of my 5'4" mum. It was badass. My mum was a very good football player in her youth. Growing up in Dublin though there was no future for her and she ended up being a shop worker most of her life. When I was about 15 we were playing soccer on the street. It was late evening and my mum was coming around the corner, home from a 12-hour shift. We used to play with a tennis ball to try and boost our control. As she walked around the corner the ball came to her. Not missing a beat she took it down on her chest and flicked it over one of the lad's head. She then dropped the shoulder and nearly broke my mate's ankle as she jinked him and then proceeded to smash the ball into the top corner past me without me even moving. She would have been 53 at the time and did it all in her work shoes, uniform and carrying her handbag. We just all stood there in silence as she just potted off into the house. Class is permanent. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.